Shalum. Shalom and welcome. Welcome to White Robes family. This is part 11 of the Closing Scrolls series. It is a series centered around realities that will prove that habitable places will begin to lessen, will begin to shrink upon the face of the earth. As life began in the Garden of Eden, and it came to a point as men began to be fruitful and multiply, we began to spread from the cradle of civilization, the Garden of Eden, outwardly, going in all four directions. And ultimately man multiplied to where east met west. It's commonly accepted and recognized as the international date line, splitting parts of the Pacific Ocean from north to south. You see, you can go so far west, and then you will be in the eastern waters. My brothers and sisters, the closing scroll. If you examine end-time prophecy, if you examine specifically even the tribulation period, it speaks of destruction, earthquakes, famine, pestilence, disease, destruction. It speaks of widespread death. And when you begin to look at a third of the world's population dying, and then in another section of Revelation, another third, where ultimately 2/3 of the world's population is destroyed. Do you not think that people, where all this death is occurring, people will be moving to areas where they believe they can survive and live? I'm compelled to believe that the Spirit of the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name revealed to me that as earthquakes, disease, and destruction comes, it will force man back to the area where life began. And I'm not saying back to the Garden of Eden, for we know that man was kicked out of the Garden of Eden, but I'm saying the region. I believe the Spirit of Yahusha revealed to me that as he draw those whom have been chosen to fulfill the final exodus back to the region where life began, specifically, there will be a drawing to the focal point of the true Mount Sinai, currently known as Jabal al-Lawz, in the northwest quadrant of the Middle East. That is the set-apart mountain where Mashyach received the 10 Commandments. That is the area where Yashar'al received the initial laws and statutes. And man will be drawn back there. We who are set apart, those who have been chosen, we will find ourselves gathered back to the promised land, back to the focal point of the true Mount Sinai. We will also witness wicked ones being drawn back to the region. And they will gather in Megiddo, and the nations will plan, and then they will have their final march against the set-apart nation of Yashar'al. Understand this. If you are one who are among the ranks of those gathered from the four corners of the earth, then we are those that represent the house of Yashar'al, the temple, the hekel of Yashar'al, for he dwells in us. He's not concerned with buildings made with hands. Although the synagogue of Satan and even many others are more so focused in believing that he is concerned with a third temple built with hands, I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, out of their own wickedness, out of their own self-determination to present themselves as the house of Yahuah, They believe by building this third temple that is the right thing to do. Pray and watch. These messages are to those who are drawn by the Almighty Father, who will grow to discern. The closing scroll, this is part 11, to bring about some information that is important for such a time as this. Before I continue, let me read the following. Warning and disclaimer. The information contained in White Rose family represent instructions and warnings to individuals who believe they are drawn by the Almighty Creator Yahuah to Yahusha Mashyach, referencing John 6:44. The content presented centers around end-time realities. Please be advised, this site is not intended for children under 16 years of age to be compliant with various media platforms. By continuing forward, you agree to hold Symmanayah harmless of any influence in our actions that arise as a result of watching, listening, and or viewing the content presented. The views expressed do not reflect the owners, management, and or shareholders of this media platform. Please note, I am not affiliated with anyone or organization with similar names. The closing scroll, my brothers and sisters. As I present this up, civil unrest is ramping up as a reflection of attacks on innocents. And there are attacks on those that's not so much innocent. But there are those who have been murdered at the hands of racists. There are innocent babies that have been aborted, from the abortions to the seniors and in between. There's a lot of innocent blood that have been spilled. To you, O Set-apart Yashar'al, I say this, it is written that vengeance is mine, saith the Almighty Father. And in my prayer, it was the Spirit of Yahuah speaking to me, saying, I will avenge the innocent blood that have been spilled. I will present a consuming fire, and I will allow the blood of the innocent to be brought to the surface in the rivers of water. My brothers and sisters, I spoke of an international dateline. I also want to bring to your attention there is something called the Ring of Fire that circles around the Pacific Ocean to the edge of the west coast of the northern hemisphere, to the edge of the east coast of those that are on the eastern hemisphere. I encourage you to Google, to search out what the Ring of Fire is, for I believe this is the edge of the earth. These are the edge where, as the Almighty Father began to close the scroll, we will see those that on the western side of the international dateline from the northern hemisphere will begin heading towards the west. In other words, from China heading towards the region where life began. China, Japan, Philippines, Indonesia. They will begin to head towards the promised land. For those on the western hemisphere, we will head eastward towards the promised land. Pray and watch. Do you think that you can have 2/3 of the population killed and destroyed and not have the area where people are living becoming uninhabitable? Now I say to you this, O Yashar'al, if I am a servant of the Almighty Father Yahuah in Yahusha's name, soon we will begin to see the rivers that are within proximity of the Ring of Fire turn to blood, to reveal the blood of the innocent. Soon and very soon, we will see the Ring of Fire light up with volcanoes and earthquakes. We will see fires. We will soon see phenomenal meteor showers. And when you begin to see the things that man cannot control, the things that have ignited, where man say we don't know where these meteor showers have come from, what caused them. When man began to say we don't know why these rivers began to turn to blood. When man began to say we have no control over these fires. Soon there will be messengers from the Almighty Father Yahuah, and they will echo the words, let my people go. Understand this, O Yashar'al, if I am a servant of the Spirit of the Almighty Father, in the name of Yahusha, when you begin to see the rivers turn to blood and they cannot say it came from a meat factory or a paint factory, when the waters begin to turn to blood, forcing man to say this area is no longer livable, it's no longer habitable, we must begin to forge away from the destruction. When the second wave of famine, pestilence, and plagues hit, when man say we have no cure, we have no understanding, we don't really know what to do, we must begin to move to where we believe is safe. You will know then that your ears and eyes have been visited by a servant of the Almighty Father Yahuah, warning you to heed the words, the warnings, and the instructions. The time is now to discuss movement, O Yashar'al. The time is now to accept the closing scroll will gradually speed up as civil unrest, economic upheaval, and widespread destruction increase. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, the time is now to face reality. Review what you see going on before you. Look in the distance beyond today. Look as the Most High will reveal to you. Do not worry about what man can do. Do not be fearful of what man can do. But accept that the Almighty Father has promised discipline, vengeance, and wrath. Now I ask you to begin to have discussions. What is the face of the discipline from the Almighty Father? And search the scriptures, for they give us examples from famine, pestilence, disease to death. What are the characteristics of his vengeance? The scriptures speak of destruction. What are the characteristics of his wrath? Review the things that are going before you to this day, O Yashar'al. With uncertainty enlarging, it's time to identify, are your leaders, are our leaders providing us with the instructions on how to engage the Spirit of the Almighty Father in Yahusha's name? Are they preparing us in the event of their death or demise on what we should do as an individual and collectively? Are they making known what the messages from the Almighty Father are saying to the set-apart family of Yashar'al? Are they preparing you to receive in or be among the ranks of the 144,000 and great multitude, 12,000 of each of the 12 tribes mentioned in Revelation 7th chapter? Or are they spreading doubt? Are they dismissing the words and actions of the obedience? Can they identify those who are being refined and disciplined? Can they identify? Are they teaching you how to identify or how to yield and be among the first fruit or among the harvest, those who are gathered, who gather the information and receive the life in the orders that are being given regarding end times? My brothers and sisters, let me present yesterday's update. I didn't update it any further, but these numbers are growing. COVID-19. Let me present this update. And as I said, I put the time it was done. I can assure you the numbers have grown since then. Current reported as of May 29th, 2020, today is the 30th, At 10:47 a.m. yesterday, there was worldwide total infected 5,945,215. Number of deaths reported 362,921. In the United States, the number infected, again, this was May 29th, 2020 at 10:47 a.m. Number infected 1,771,631. Number of deaths 103,418. There are no known cures for this virus. There's still uncertainty of where did it come from, what originated it, how did it get out. You see, when the Almighty Father orders famine and pestilence, and we read about in the Old Testament, no one asked, well, how did he do that? How did it come about? We know that it did. And as I stated, there are people among the quote-unquote religious families, there are people among Yashar'al who think that the coronavirus, COVID-19, is the devil. Actions of the devil. I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, it is the fruit of rebellion and wickedness upon the face of the earth. It is the fruit of our neglect of what we're supposed to do with the things we have been in charge with. And this disease will ramp up. This disease is the crown jewel of other diseases. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. It is a disease in the midst of other diseases. The other diseases didn't go away, oh Yashar'al. But as they ramp up, we will see the numbers of death increase. We will see people stop making light of the hand of the Almighty Father's discipline, his vengeance, and his wrath. His discipline will bring us mentally, emotionally, and physically weak. And in that weakness, we will rise up strong as we cry out and begin to discern what he is saying to us, through us, one towards another, and through his chosen ones. Remember, Isaiah 11:12 said, he shall raise a banner for the nations and gather the outcasts of Yashar'al and assemble the dispersed of Yahudah from the four corners of the earth. How many among us have begun to ask, how will he do that? What would that resemble? The closing scroll, my brothers and sisters. It is time during these end times we must look at our beliefs. We must look and examine what are our expectations. There must be talks and action and prayer. We must recognize the reality of what's unfolding, Yashar'al. Consider Matthew chapter 10, 34 to 36, of which I've read before. Do not think that I've come to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. What does a sword do, O Yashar'al? It cuts. It separates. He goes on to say, for I have come to bring division. What does division mean? Separation. Set-apartness is coming for Yashar'al. A man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemy are those of his own household. Are you prepared when someone in your household betray you? When someone in your household disregard the ways of the set-apart Almighty Father? Gird up, O Yashar'al, for the time will come when we must merge together, we who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, we who are chosen to do his will, to fulfill end-time prophecies. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 3 and 4 says, let no one deceive you in any way. To prevent this, my brothers and sisters, we must learn to discern. We must learn those who are chosen. We must identify those on meat to help those on milk. We must identify what is true and right and come away from compromising camps, communities, and fellowships. Draw into those who sincerely want to be as iron sharpening iron and address what is right and do what is right in the eyes of the Almighty Father. It says, let no one deceive you in any way, because the falling away is to come first, and the man of lawlessness is to be revealed, the son of destruction. What kind of destruction do you think the man of lawlessness will bring? Look around, O Yashar'al. It has begun. His work has begun, but the fullness of the Antichrist or anti-Messiah will not happen until we are gathered from the four corners of the earth. those who have been chosen for his esteem. Look at Isaiah 43 and you'll see, for his esteem. It's not everyone, it's not every brother and sister. Because remember, some will be led astray, brothers are led astray, because there are some on milk. There are some weak. There are some that will stumble and fall. There are other brothers who would die for Yahusha's name. They will not be gathered before the physical return. It goes on to say, the son of destruction, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called the Almighty One, that is worshipped, so that he sits as the Almighty One in the dwelling place of the Almighty One, showing himself that he is the Almighty One. My brothers and sisters, when we gather from the four corners of the earth, when those gather to the set-apart mountain of Yahuah, Mount Sinai, currently known as Jabal Allah, the wicked one, once he killed the two witnesses of revelation, then he will march to the true house of Yahuah, the true temple of Yahuah. That is the camp of the set-apart children of Yahuah. And as we wait the physical return of Yahusha, he's going to pop up saying, I'm here, trying to deceive us. And at that very moment, the two witnesses of revelation will raise up from lying in the street dead. The Mashyach, Yahusha, will return, and there will be an ultimate earthquake. Pray and watch, O Yashar'al. Between now and then, there is much work that is tasked amongst the set-apart children of Yahuah. If you drop down to the 6th verse and 7th verse, I'm in the 2nd chapter of 2nd Thessalonians. It's saying, now you know what restrains for him to be revealed in this time. For the secret of lawlessness is already at work. We see that, my brothers and sisters. But it says, only until he who now restrains come out of the midst. It is us, O Yashar'al, those that will be gathered. I want to bring your attention to why, O Yashar'al, why it's important for us to realize there's a lesson on choosing sides. There's a lesson for us to learn. There are actions we must learn as it relates to governing ourselves. Yashar'al, my brothers and sisters, when it comes to choosing sides, do you know once you're faced with choosing a side, what awaits? I need to repair something here that I would like to fix. Bear with me, my brothers and sisters. You know, Yashar'al, the scriptures show us many times when people made a decision. Some decisions were wise, some were not. There are many lessons to be learned. End times will prove that it is now time to choose what side do you believe will bring you to the point of obedience. I want to give you an example of an excerpt in Numbers 16th chapter, verse 29 through 33. It reads, if these die as all men do, this is Moses talking before Yashar'al, and he's referring to some men that were rebellious against him in the leadership of Yashar'al. And he said, if these men die as all men do, if they are visited as all men are visited, then Yahuah has not sent me. But if Yahuah creates what is unheard of, and the earth opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into the grave, then you shall know that these men have scorned Yahuah, And it came to be as he ended speaking all these words that the ground under them split apart. My brothers and sisters, when the ground split open, is that not like an earthquake? Could we be witnessing a description of one of the first sinkholes known to man? It says the earth opens its mouth and swallowed them up with their households and all the men with Korah and with all their goods. So they and all those with them went down alive into the grave, and the earth closed over them, and they perished from the midst of the assembly. I'm not trying to scare you, my brothers and sisters, to fearing what man can do. But I do want you to fear Yahuah. For out of that fear comes knowledge. Out of that knowledge comes wisdom. Out of that wisdom comes what's necessary for us to choose the right side. Yashar'al, the example I just read. There's another example. And I won't bring it, I won't read it, but I would direct your attention to Acts. There's an example where there was a husband and there were a man and a woman that sought to deceive the taught ones of the Almighty Father in lying. Ananias and Sapphira. That's written in Acts. And they dropped instantly at a point where they encountered a representative of the Most High Father. Instant death. Choosing the right side, choosing what narrative, whom you're going to believe, what teachings is important. Yashar'al, right now, there's a lot of civil unrest. There are protests, not only from the death of the innocent, protests about this widespread pandemic, protests about economic survival, protests about living conditions and environment, protests over fresh water, protests about dealing with diseases, protests over vaccines. There's a lot of noise, O Yashar'al. And the Almighty Father promised discipline to his children. I've mentioned this before, and if you're listening for the first time, read Hebrews 12th chapter several times with the mind to seek to understand the why behind what is unfolding. Understand Revelation 3:19 that the Most High disciplined those whom he loved. And ask yourself, what are the characteristics of that discipline? Search the scriptures and you'll see examples: famine, pestilence, disease, leprosy, death. My brothers and sisters, sometimes the Most High will not use the extreme measures. He just open our eyes. And there will be those who will quickly respond. There'll be those who will understand what iron sharpening iron. Moving through the doors, O Yashar'al, my instruction to you is to learn how to vet, learn how to ask questions. For there are some questions, if you get the answer, it will let you know you need to come out of that community, that camp, that group. Questions where the leader is lifted up and not Yahusha. Something is wrong. Questions where the leaders are esteemed more than Yahuah, more than Yahusha. It is Yahusha who said, if he be lifted up, he'll draw all men. So when the congregants, when the flock exhort the leader must give all esteem to Yahusha Mashyach. There are those who want to play it safe by saying Yah and just the Most High. The scriptures tell us there's no other name in which one can be saved. We must know his name. We must echo his name. The scriptures tell us no one can come unto the Father, the Almighty Yahuah, except through the Son, Yahusha Mashyach, who is indeed his word manifest before us in the flesh. And upon the sacrifice and resurrection, the Most High sent his set-apart spirit in Yahusha's name. Pray and watch, Yashar'al. Pray and discern those who are truly following the spirit of Yahusha, who are being used to emanate actions that make you want to draw closer to Yahusha. Those that emanate actions and demonstrate actions and behaviors and teachings that make you say that if I do these same things with a sincere heart, mind, body, and soul, I too will grow stronger in worship and obedience to the Almighty Father. Moving through the noise, my brothers and sisters, there will be discipline, vengeance, and wrath. It has begun. Yashar'al, it's time to put away entertainment. If you don't know the answers and you find your spirit being stirred, seek out the answers versus saying, oh, well, I don't know who's wrong. Every man's a liar. I look at some of these social media feeds and people see all the widespread destruction and death, see the uneasiness, see the unhappiness. And then there's the group that mines scriptures to grab any scripture that will make them feel good, but they do not erase the realities of what's happening. Yashar'al, we are in spiritual battle. There are times of joy and comfort, but there are times of mature actions. We must begin to ask ourselves, what are the sentiments? What are the rudiments, the factors, the components of fitly joining together an awakening nation to bring them into unity? What is it that must occur, and how will it come to be? Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, out of all the noise, the Almighty Father will open our eyes and ears. Pray and watch. Come with me. For these verses have echoed in my head frequently, O Yashar'al. Take heed to these words. The 4th chapter of Amos. The 4th chapter of Amos says, and I also gave you a cleanness of teeth in all your cities, and lack of bread in all your places, but you did not turn back to me, declares Yahuah. You see, famine will intensify, lack of food will ramp up, and you will see out of stubbornness, many of us still will not turn back to him. Goes on to say in the 7th verse, I also withheld rain from you 3 new moons before the harvest. Then I would send rain on one city, and on another city I would not send rain. One part was rained upon, and where it did not rain, the part would dry up. Do we not see that occurring now? How many people in the midst of wildfires and drought are crying out to Yahuah, are seeking him in the name of Yahusha? How many of us are doing that? How widespread are we seeing that occur? We're not. He goes on to say, then 2 or 3 cities would wander to another city to drink water, but they were not satisfied. But you did not turn back to me, declares Yahuah. I have stricken you with blight and with mildew. The creeping locust devoured your many gardens and your vineyards, your fig trees and your olive trees, but you did not turn back to me, declares Yahuah. I have sent among you a plague in the way of Mitzrayim. And what does it say? I've sent a plague in the midst of your captivity, in the midst of your bondage. I have killed your young men with the sword along with your captured horses, and I made the stench of your camps come up into your nostrils, but you did not turn back to me, declares Yahuah. Yashar'al, take heed, these words echo in my spirit. These words are to be said to you, for though they have their literal meaning regarding a specific time, I submit to you they apply to this day. He says, I have overthrown some of you as the Almighty One overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And you were like a burning stick plucked from the burning, but you did not turn back to me. Therefore I am doing this to you, O Yashar'al, and because I do this to you, prepare to meet your Almighty One. Yashar'al, Amos, 4th chapter, verse 6 to 12. Such conditions are being magnified. Notice that he said in the 12th verse, prepare to meet the Almighty One, O Yashar'al. There is more. My brothers and sisters, do you not think that the scroll is closing? Have you begun talking about movement? How and when, with whom? how long it would take, what date, what's the destination. Things will get separated, my brothers and sisters. There will be a separation of the set apart, obedient ones that will be gathered and that will fulfill what is written versus those left behind. Consider Amos chapter 9, verse 8 and 9. I've shared this once upon a time before. It said, look, the eyes of the Master Yahuah are on the sinful reign, and I shall destroy it from the face of the earth, except that I do not completely destroy the house of Yaakov, declares Yahuah. For look, I am commanding, and I shall sift the house of Yashar'al among all the nations as one sift with a sieve, yet not a grain falls to the ground. Here he says, my brothers and sisters, I shall destroy, but not completely, the house of your code. He's commanding, he will sift Yashar'al. My brothers and sisters, are you aware that we must come to recognize what it means that he will sift the house of Yashar'al? Are you aware that this means a shaking, a filtering? The eyes of Master Yahuah see what's going on. He's commanding. Do you not know that our spirits are being stirred for a purpose, for us to be used by him in making these commands before Yashar'al? My brothers and sisters, some of you are tired of hearing, just like many people are tired of hearing about COVID-19. I get it. I really do. As I have mentioned to you before, my brothers and sisters, there are certain warnings that will repeat themselves over and over. You can take the position of saying, I'm tired of hearing it. You can take the position of saying, well, what else is new? Or you can begin intense discussions, questions. You can seek out to discover what the Spirit of Yahuah is saying. Things will get separated. My brothers and sisters, now is a time that you can begin building a checklist. You can begin asking yourselves, okay, do I need a lot of water or enough bottled water for a few days? What clothes do I need? Or do I leave with the clothes on my back? What shoes? My personal encouragement to you is to always keep a pair of shoes that you can walk miles in. Either wear them or keep them close by. If you're in a car, if you're using public transportation, keep a pair of walking shoes, because soon and very soon, forced migrations will ramp up beyond belief, O Yashar'al, and you're going to wish you had some comfortable shoes. There will be those ordered to just move, just leave, just go. And there will be orders for some to carry extra. So when they meet up with those without, they will have something. There are dynamics that must be discussed. What happens, O Yashar'al, in the event an earthquake, a meteor shower, a tsunami? What happens in the event of an extreme emergency and there's no way you can get in touch with the persons that you believe you need to get in touch with? Are our leaders teaching you on what to do, how to discern what Yahusha is saying, what the Spirit of Yahusha is saying you must do? So you see, in discernment, Yashar'al, we will learn to follow his footsteps, his living guidance. Build a checklist as things ramp up of what must be done. Consider these things, O Yashar'al. As you build your checklist, consider water and food. There are some people that will buy gallons of water. I submit to you to get bottled water or a container that can hold enough water that such that you're not carrying so much weight when you find yourself moving. Think about the supplies and resources. Either make or purchase some food, maybe fruit snacks or trail mix, something that you can nibble off of as you find yourself forced to move and not able to carry the stuff that's in your refrigerator, if you have any food in your refrigerator or freezer. Think about the supplies. Think about resources. Think about the things that are natural that can support these that will support your immune system beyond pharmaceuticals. Have discussions. Identify those who are well learned and skilled in the management of supplies and resources, who are skilled in identifying what we must look at having. Build that checklist, O Yashar'al. Consider shelter. Consider that there will be intermittent movement. In other words, the shelter you're in today may be destroyed because of earthquakes, tsunamis, civil unrest, may be burned down. Know when to leave, when to move. Know whether the Almighty Father is saying, stay there until you face physical death, or leave because I have more work for you. Understand these words, O Yashar'al. It is the Almighty Father who determines who lives or dies physically. Begin to talk about transportation. Who rides with whom? What transportation will you live? Will it all load up on buses? How many can get in different cars? How will we caravan? In what direction? What highways? What roads we will take? How swiftly must we go? Have these discussions and discover the realities of what needs to be evaluated and what decisions need to be made. Think about the assembly, the people, movement. There will come times we will not be able to be discussing and debating on why we shoulda, coulda, woulda, that we must focus forward. And I use a passage in Proverbs that I'll share here in a minute that emphasize focusing forward. This is a necessity for the 144,000 in great multitude. Discuss set-apart living orders. Discuss scriptures that come alive and discuss things that are ordered by the Almighty Father that line up with scriptures. Talk about destinations, O Yashar'al. These are things to consider. The closing scroll. I say to you, my brothers and sisters, remember these words. When you find yourself in distress, when you find yourself saying, I just don't know what to do, I don't know where to go, pray earnestly. The Almighty Father hears all and sees all. Seek to discern what he's saying and keep these words in your mind. Let your eyelids look forward, let your eyes look forward and your eyelids look straight before you. Consider the path of your feet and all your ways are established. Do not turn to the right or left. Turn your foot away from evil. In other words, my brothers, what it's saying in the 27th verse, I'm reading Proverbs 4th chapter, verse 25 through 26. Proverbs 4th chapter, verse 25 through 27. Notice he's saying look forward. But notice in the 27th verse, he said, don't turn right or left. Turn your foot away from evil. What he's saying here is don't establish a rule that you always go right or you always go left. Don't pay attention to these politicians saying the far left or the far right. Pay attention to what the Spirit of Yahuah is saying in Yahusha's name and go in that direction. And you will find that your foot would be turned away from evil. And remember what it said in John chapter 10, verse 27 through 30. John chapter 10, verse 27 through 30. Remember that it says, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And I give them everlasting life, and they shall by no means ever perish, and no one shall snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all, and no one is able to snatch them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one. My brothers and sisters, end times are here. We are the generation to witness the scroll close. We are the generation that will face things that we must and will respond to. Failure to do so will lead to physical death for many. We must and will grow to discern what must be done. Those who will be among the ranks of the 144,000, 12,000 Hebrews from each of the 12 tribes that are mentioned in Revelation 7 chapter. For you will notice that Dan is not mentioned, my brothers and sisters. Manasseh is the grandson of Yaakov, whose name was changed to Yashar'al, commonly known as Israel. These are the 12 tribes. 12,000 of them from each of these 12 tribes will recognize the task that they have been assigned to do. And there will be a great multitude of which no man can number, of many nations, kindreds, and tongues, including Hebrews, Abrahym, and Gentiles, also known as Goym, which means other nations. You see, my brothers and sisters, throughout the scriptures, when it distinguishes Hebrews and Gentiles, it's basically saying, or Abrahym and Goym, it's basically saying, this is the nation that Yahuah has started with, have begun with. It is the Abrahym, it is the Hebrews. And anybody outside of that, it's Goym, all other nations. And there are those from all other nations that will be grafted into the true children of Yahuah as one under the banner of Yashar'al. Understand this, my brothers and sisters. I didn't make this plan, but I rejoice in witnessing all that is promised by the Almighty Father unfold before my very eyes. I rejoice in the visions, the reality of what the Most High have showed me. I rejoice in the strength that he has given me to endure the time such as this. I rejoice in the strength that he's given you for such a time as this. I rejoice in the favor that there will be a great multitude. There will be 144,000. This lets us know we are not alone, O Yashar'al. We will learn things we must and will do in these final days. My brothers and sisters, know how to examine all things. All things, my brothers and sisters. And I submit to you the 7 major feast times. I've said it over and over. And if you doubt these words, ask yourselves, in Passover, my brothers and sisters, were there not instructions given that led to life? And Feast of Unleavened Bread, does it not emphasize the need to be able to identify what is leavened and what is unleavened? I submit to you what is right, what is wrong. See, we can get instructions to life, my brothers and sisters. But what's the next step? The next step is to discern the difference between good and evil. And in that pursuit of growth and maturity, in that pursuit of meat, in that pursuit of understanding more of the bread of life from Yahusha Mashyach, in that pursuit of recognizing the living water washing and cleansing us by the word of Yahuah, in that pursuit, some will get it quicker, thus first fruits. And then in time, more and more will come aboard, thus the harvest. And as more people come into the enlightenment of the truth, as the 144,000 come together, as a great multitude start to emerge in large numbers, we will see mistakes, stumbling and falling. Because sometimes in the excitement, we stumble. Sometimes we become over anxious. And the Most High want to bring our attention to the Feast of Atonement. The purpose of how the blood of the Lamb covers that stumble, that misstep. When we seek forgiveness, when we yield to reproof, when we yield to correction, swiftly, the quicker we do that, when we know we've stepped in the wrong direction, when we stumble or fall, the sooner we do that, we rise up, renewed by the power and might of the Almighty Father. So after the Feast of Atonement, we see the Feast of Harvest, many, the Feast of Trumpets, expressing and proclaiming the praises to the Most High, Father Yahuah, in Yahusha's name. The Feast of Trumpet, echoing the sentiments of deliverance, as well as proclaiming judgment. And all of that excitement, a joyful noise before the Almighty Father. And in all that excitement, from harvest, where more people get it, to excitement, the Feast of Atonement, understanding the power of the blood of the Lamb, and then recognizing the dynamics of how we function, the inward man, how the flesh war against the spirit, the flesh being our brain, our cognitive factors, things that influence us as a child, from the home to the neighborhood, to the community, to clubs, to our jobs, all the things, to the teachings, the way we've been programmed. These things have occurred in our cognitive factors, our brain, our mental perceptions. Notice how one person can read one thing, another person read another, and they get something totally different. Now, if they can join hand and embrace, this is an example of Yahuah making things whole. But if they conflict to where they seek to destroy or remove one another, something is wrong. We must learn how to examine all things, O Yashar'al, all things. The closing scroll will ramp up. The scriptures tell us that the days will be shortened. And I have submitted to you, O Yashar'al, in times past. The days will be shortened as a result of people from the farthest west starting to move eastward. Are you not aware that there's a 3-hour difference from California to New York? That there's a 7-hour difference between New York and across the pond, the great Atlantic Ocean? And as you move from west to east, from the Western Hemisphere towards the region where life began, the days are shortened. You lose hours. This is what is meant by the days being shortened, O Yashar'al. Ask questions, vet, seek answers. And if you're not receiving the instructions that you need to equip you with how to be strong in the spirit and enduring to the end, maybe you're with the wrong community camp or under the wrong leadership. Come with me, Yashar'al, as I read the following. My brothers and sisters, there will be movement. Movement had begun for some. I moved me and my household hundreds of miles from the Midwest to the Commonwealth of Virginia, the state of Virginia. For I believe that the Most High told me over 30 years ago that as I began to gather my children, I want you to be at that exit point. I want you to be able to practice what you're saying to others in the Western Hemisphere, that is to gather, to consider that the exit point will be the Commonwealth, the state of Virginia. Movement will come, my brothers and sisters. In some cases, there are places where the Most High will have you shelter in place and build up like an oasis, a place where people can refuel and stop and rest as they forge eastward. And for those that are not in the Western Hemisphere, there will be intermittent places where you can stop and freshen up with other set-apart ones who have been ordered to be there. Yashar'al, know the life in Matthew 19:29 and 30. And everyone who has left houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or wife or children or lands for my name's sake shall receive 100-fold and shall inherit everlasting life. But many who are first shall be last, and the last first. Know what this means, O Yashar'al, for there are those who say, I've been in this walk for years. But they are stubborn. They stumbled. Notice how in Revelations chapter 1, 2, and 3, when it talks about the assemblies, you'll notice two examples where you say, remember where you've fallen and repent. You see, there are many who are going to say, I've been in this walk for a long time. I know everything is right, and I know what I'm doing is correct. You can't tell me. And their stubbornness will put them at the end of the line. In some cases, will cause them to be removed, left behind, or either face physical death. And there are those who are just now awakening, who are saying, I want to discern. I want to know what the Almighty Father has for me. I want to recognize his living spirit and do what he is asking of me, ordering of me, directing my footsteps. We will see who will be first, O Yashar'al. I mentioned Isaiah 43 earlier when I was talking about the final Exodus. And I want to bring your attention to why everyone will not be gathered from the four corners of the earth before the physical return of Yahusha. There will be martyrs for Yahusha's name. There will be others tasked with doing various other deeds. There will be those who will be slow to move and slow to respond. Isaiah 43rd chapter, verse 5 through 7. Isaiah 43rd chapter, verse 5 through 7. Do not fear, for I am with you. I shall bring your seed from the east and gather you from the west. I shall say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not keep them back. Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth. And all those who are called by my name, who I've created, formed, even made for my esteem. See, people, we must keep the scriptures whole. Even though it says all those who are called by my name, it says who he made for his esteem to fulfill this specific prophecy. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, the scroll is closing, and soon it will speed up. Pray and watch. There will be movement. There will be the leaving. There will be evacuations occurring, and in some cases it has begun. It's time, O Yashar'al, to discern the ultimate destination. Where is it that the Almighty Father is directing you? The closing scroll, O Yashar'al. Discern the ultimate destinations, knowing directions, or being with those who know how to navigate, know how to obey when the Almighty Father say go north, go south, go east, go west. We will meander through the lands. Meander meaning just weaving, bobbing, weaving, or weaving in and out, going left, going right, going up and down. We will go in various directions. Ultimately, our destination will be where the Most High orders our footsteps. And I believe the final destination before the physical return of Yahusha is Mount Sinai, the true Mount Sinai, currently known as Jabal al-Lawz, located in the northwest quadrant of what is now known as Saudi Arabia. We will identify routes in the journey to this set-apart mountain. A mountain that has been guarded and kept secret for many years, but most recently the Saudi government have begun to allow tourism, have begun to allow people to examine it within eye distance. There are still some areas fenced off. Have you ever asked why are they lighting up and admitting to it now? I say to you, for such a time as this, the world is about to admit who the true Hebrews are, the true Abrahym of Yahuah. The world is about to witness those who seek to do the will of the Almighty Father, who are Goym, Gentiles, who are joined together with the set-apart children of Yashar'al. The world will witness a coming together like never before. Recognizing the methods, the details, the processes for reaching the final destination. Praying for those left behind. Encouraging those who are not tasked with fulfilling the final exodus is important. But how will we know who is whom? I say to you, O Yashar'al, by the fear of Yahuah. For the scriptures say, in the fear of Yahuah is the beginning of knowledge. This is how we will know. This is how we will gain knowledge on what we are to do, O Yashar'al. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. Let our actions not be reflective of fools. Let our actions not show that we're despising wisdom and discipline. For these are things that are necessary as the scroll closed, O Yashar'al. We will search for safety. We will seek to identify places of refuge. But know this. Proverbs 14:26 say, in the fear of Yahuah is strong trust, and his children have a place of refuge. I submit to you that refuge for those who must fulfill the final exodus or be the last shelter before final destruction. We will know where that place of refuge is. The ultimate place of refuge is in the bosom of the Almighty Father, in his hand. Do you not know physical death? The bodies go back to the earth, but our spirit returns to Yahuah, as is written in Ecclesiastes. There's the literal place of refuge, that's a literal and physical place for us until such a time as the Most High say otherwise. And there's the ultimate place of refuge, is being with the Father forevermore. Understand, my brothers and sisters, keep these alive in your mind during such times that we are facing. Hebrews 11:1 saying, belief is the substance of what is expected, the proof of what is not seen. My brothers and sisters, there are a lot of individuals who say, show me the script, show me the script, give me the address, point to the scriptures. And there are those who are hungry for the scriptures, but yet they will not say, those who answer won't say, I'll show you the scripture, but you must seek the spirit to make it alive so you can understand. There are those that say, show me the scriptures, and I will pray that the Father make them alive before me in the name of Yahusha. But just to see the text is not enough, my brothers and sisters. There are words coming from the obedient one. There are words coming from obedient ones of Yahuah in Yahusha's name. There are words, there are warnings, there are instructions. There is proof that you cannot see right now, but ultimately it will unfold before your eyes. Those who must fulfill the final exodus. Hebrews 11:6 said, but without belief it's impossible to please him. For he who comes to the Almighty One has to believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who earnestly seek him. Yashar'al, O Yashar'al, remember, seek answers. You know, during this quarantine time, my brothers and sisters, this is a time where prayer, this is a time of communication. This is a time for asking questions. Who, what, when, where, how much? How so? There are plans going forward. Plans that are being enacted to bring the different members of the set-apart body of Yashar'al together and make us whole. Can you identify those plans? Have you joined in with such plans? Are you charged with executing such plans? Are you not getting tired, my brothers and sisters? Are you not getting tired of quote-unquote playing church or entertainment? Are you not realizing that all these preachers, teachers, pastors that just want to tell you the comforting things are missing the serious instructions and teachings necessary to equip you with yielding to the spirit of Yahusha so that you might lead in some case, in some way, in some shape or form? Should they not be giving you instructions on how to be a servant of the Almighty Father, how to lift up Yahushua Mashyach so that we are fitly joined together? Are they not giving you instructions how to serve and how to lead? Are they demonstrating in whole what must be done? Or do they want to just have you, my brothers and sisters, lift them up? Seek answers, my brothers and sisters. Ask questions. The scroll is closing. Some of you will get this recording and may listen to it while in movement, while looking for another apartment, a house, while adapting to living in your car, truck, RV or on the streets? Are there teachings that show you how to govern yourself if in fact you find yourself homeless? Are there brothers and sisters who will literally take you into their home? Here's a way to find out if someone is telling you the truth or not. If a brother say, well, hey, if push come to shove, you can come into my house. Now, some apartments have and some houses have rules governing. But in the midst of chaos, in the midst of extreme situations, in the midst of extreme conditions, my brothers and sisters, all those laws will fall to the wayside as people look for refuge. If a brother's saying, sure, you can come to my house, are the teachers saying it might be for a moment because I'm leaving my house and heading eastward or westward or north or south, and we can travel together? Are these discussions being had? I heard a brother say that he's developing priests and kings, but in the same breath said, don't come to my house. I don't have room for you. I don't have any money. But yet, he is a teacher of priests and kings. This is dangerous. Yet, there are people still following and believe that he's speaking to the Most High. You see, my brothers and sisters, I ask questions. I study the scriptures. I weigh the scriptures. And I seek to hear what the Spirit of Yahusha have to say. So when all these different ones be talking about the Most High told me, God told me, Yah told me, I weigh it before the scriptures that they are made alive with prayer and supplication. And there are times the Most High Father in the name of Yahusha say, I didn't say that. I wasn't in that. They're lying. They're bearing false witness against me. You see, my brothers and sisters, as the scroll closed, as movement comes, you begin asking questions and people saying, oh no, I can't. If they start telling you I can't help you there. There's nothing I can do for you there. I don't have any money. Who said you have to have money to allow someone into your home? If they're not discussing about when the food gets down to where we have little to none, if they're not discussing on how to manage and ration foods, is that the leader you really want to be with? I heard another leader, a pastor of the community, boast about how many chickens and cows and beef that he has and how much food he has and how being on his compound in his community that they're prepared for the food shortage. Everything have a limitation, my brothers and sisters. But is that the leader you want to follow? I've yet to hear him say that as if the Almighty Father should bring people to my community, we will vet them. We will seek to discern, are they indeed being led by the Spirit of the Father? And we will ration our food. We have enough food that will last a year, 2 years. You see, my brothers and sisters, they might be saying it can last 6 months, 2 years, but if conditions are ramping up, if there's widespread destruction, if there's economic upheaval, it may prohibit you from growing more food because you may find a time that you have to move. And if an earthquake hit your community, if a sinkhole open up because you put yourself before Yahuah, where then do you go and how then do you manage? You see, my brothers and sisters, if you ask enough questions, you can determine, is this the leader you want to be with? Is this a leader who yields to instruction? Is this a leader who can identify someone being used by the Almighty Father to lead him or her? Is it a camp that is so large? Is it one of these groups that have a branded label with churches or assembly places all over? Is that leader saying, I know when to hand the baton, I know when to yield, I know when to identify someone that has been anointed by the Almighty Father to lead me in my flock, or me in my camp, or me in my community? Or are they putting themselves up and saying there's no one better than I? But yet they do not show the skill sets of how to manage, how to ration, when to move. You see, my brothers and sisters, during these end times, the closing scroll will force every living individual out of pocket, out of place. Watch. Every living individual will move as widespread death and destruction as meteor showers come. Fire and blood emerge. When volcanic activities erupt. When the rivers start to turn to red as blood. Vengeance is mine, saith the Almighty Father. Watch, O Yashar'al. The scroll is closing slowly. There's a story or cliche, so to speak, of a frog. And it goes like this. If you place a frog in a pot of water and gradually turn up the heat, it will become so relaxed and comfortable that when the water started boiling, its muscles, it would be too weak to jump out of that boiling pot. But if you take a frog and drop it in boiling water, it would immediately jump right out. There's some truth to that, O Yashar'al. Gradually, we're seeing end times intensify, and there are those who will wait. There are those who are waiting. There are those who will face so much congestion, even though they have an idea of what direction to go. It'll be so much congestion, the crowds, the railways, the airports, the highways will be so congested, it'll be too late. They won't make it. And there are those who won't know what to do, while there are others that say, I know he reigned on the just and unjust. I will yet praise him. I will yet worship him in spite of not being able to go in the direction I shoulda, woulda, coulda went. Yashar'al, Yashar'al. Soon it's going to ramp up so obvious that people will understand the sense of urgency that is necessary. Ask questions, my brothers and sisters. And if I'm doing anything, if I'm saying anything that draws you closer to the Almighty Father, that makes you want to pray and seek answers and embrace answers and act, subscribe, O Yashar'al, and hear these words, for there's much more to be said. There's so much that's getting ready to unfold. Where are the hungry? Where are the thirsty? It may not be you, but I can assure you there's a multitude of those being drawn by the Almighty Father to fulfill specific tasks that includes the emergence of the 144,000. That includes a great multitude. Hear these words, O Yashar'al. Pray on these words. Subscribe, share with others. Let us begin to witness the plans of the Most High. Let us ask questions. Let us examine. For soon and very soon, my brothers and sisters, there will be those who will rise up, sharp, quick responders, first fruits of the body of Yashar'al. We will soon see the two witnesses of Revelation emerge. We will soon see famine, pestilence, and disease, fire, like man has never witnessed before. Pray and watch, my brothers and sisters. Things are about to happen that man will not have an answer. And the messengers of the Almighty Father will present the answers. The Spirit of Yahusha will guide us, direct us. And the world leaders will know to let the people of Yahuah that is set apart for the gathering from the four corners, the world leaders will indeed let us go. And they will even play a part in us coming together. Remember, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, verse 7. We are the restraint, those that will be gathered from the four corners of the earth. And soon we must move in order for the world government to rise up, led by the anti-Messiah, commonly known as Antichrist, and exact the mark of the beast system. They are putting everything in place for a cashless society. They are putting everything in place for the mark of the beast. But until he that restraineth is removed, that removal is the gathering from the four corners of the earth. Pray and watch, O Yashar'al. I invite your questions, your discussions, your examination, your fellowship. I salute your patience, and I say to you, again, the closing scroll is real. On that note, my brother, my sister, there's a stirring that is going, and we will identify that stirring as the Spirit of Yahusha working in us, through us, one towards another. On that note, I salute your patience, your tolerance, your pursuit of set-apartness. In the name of Yahusha, I come to you. My name is Symmanayah, and I say to you, my brothers, my sisters, my family, Shalum.